Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a comprehensive understanding of test scores in education. We'll explore how to interpret these scores, how they can be effectively used, and ways to enhance academic assessments to benefit students, parents, and educators alike. I'm excited to share insights that will help us all make the most of educational assessments. Let's get started. Test scores serve as a way to gauge a student's knowledge, skills, or abilities in particular subjects. Essentially, they offer a snapshot of where a student stands academically, highlighting both strengths and areas that may need more attention. For educators, these scores are invaluable because they help monitor learning outcomes and shape instructional strategies to better support students. At the same time, test scores play an important role for students and parents by pinpointing specific areas where additional focus can lead to improvement. Overall, test scores are a key part of understanding and supporting academic growth. Let's start by looking at raw scores. These are simply the number of questions a student answered correctly. It's the most basic measure of performance. Next, we have scaled scores, which take those raw scores and adjust them to a common scale. This helps ensure fairness when comparing results from different tests or testing sessions. Then there are percentile ranks. These tell us how a student performed compared to their peers, showing percentage of students they scored better than. Finally, standing scores simplify all this information by grouping performance into 9 broad categories, ranging from low to high, making it easier to understand at a glance. Each type of score provides a different perspective on student achievement. When we talk about raw scores, we're referring to the straightforward count of how many questions were answered correctly on a test. This gives us a direct measure of performance. However, because tests can vary in difficulty and length, raw scores alone don't always give us a fair comparison between different versions or instances of a test. That's where scaled scores come in. Scaled scores adjust the raw scores to a common scale, taking those differences into account. This adjustment makes it possible to compare results accurately, whether it's across different test forms or over multiple testing periods. So, scaled scores provide a more reliable way to interpret and compare test performance. Let's talk about percentile ranks first. A percentile rank shows the percentage of peers that a student has scored better than. So, if a student is in the 75th percentile, it means they perform better than 75% of the other test takers. It's a straightforward way to see how a student compares with the group. Now, moving on to standing scores. These scores break performance into 9 categories, from 1 to 9, with 1 being the lowest and 9 the highest. They provide a simple but clear picture where a student falls within the broader range of scores, making it easier to understand overall performance at a glance. Both percentile ranks and standing scores are valuable tools for interpreting test results effectively. When interpreting test scores correctly, the first thing to keep in mind is understanding the type of score you're dealing with and the context of the test. Different scores give different information, so knowing what kind you're looking at is crucial. For example, raw scores, which are just a number of correct answers, don't tell the full story on their own because they don't show how a person performed compared to others. That's where scaling comes into play. Percentile ranks are often misunderstood. They don't indicate the percentage of questions someone got right, but rather their relative standing compared to the group tested. So, if someone is in the 70th percentile, it means they scored better than 70% of the test takers, not that they got 70% of the questions correct. It's also important to think about factors like how difficult the test was, what content was covered, and the characteristics of the population taking the test. These elements all influence how scores should be interpreted. By considering all these aspects together, we can avoid common pitfalls and make more accurate conclusions about a person's abilities or progress. This comprehensive approach safeguards us against misinterpretation and ensures we're drawing meaningful insights from test results. When we look at test scores, they serve as useful indicators of a student's proficiency in certain areas, as well as highlight where improvement is needed. Essentially, these scores give us valuable insight into specific skills that a student has mastered or is struggling with. However, it's important to remember that test scores alone don't tell the whole story. To get a complete and accurate picture of a student's academic performance, we need to combine these scores with other forms of assessment, like classroom work and teacher observations. This multifaceted approach helps us better understand both the strengths and challenges a student faces. Test scores play a significant role in shaping a student's educational journey and beyond. They influence key decisions like placement in specialized programs, eligibility for advanced courses, and qualification for various scholarships. It's crucial to understand what these scores really mean so that decisions are made fairly and effectively support the student's individual learning path. Ultimately, test scores can open doors to future opportunities, impacting not only education but also career potential down the line. Keeping this in mind helps us appreciate why interpreting these scores thoughtfully is so important. It's important to understand that test scores are not a direct measure of intelligence or a student's overall potential. Rather, they reflect how someone performs on specific tasks under certain conditions. Many factors can influence these scores, such as the environment during the test, levels of test anxiety, and even the student's health on that particular day. Because of this, it's crucial to avoid misinterpreting test scores, as doing so can lead to unfair judgments about a student's abilities or their future success. Recognizing these limitations helps us view test scores more fairly and contextually. When we rely on just one test score, we're only seeing a small part of a student's abilities, which can be misleading or incomplete. That's why combining different types of assessments is so important. By looking at standardized test results alongside classroom assessments and the qualitative feedback teachers provide, we get a much fuller picture of how a student is really doing. This approach not only captures a wider range of skills and knowledge, but also helps educators make better informed decisions about how to evaluate students and tailor learning strategies to meet their needs more effectively. Ultimately, using multiple measures leads to fairer and more accurate assessments of student performance. By truly understanding the different types of test scores and how to interpret them correctly, we empower students, parents, and educators alike. This knowledge isn't just about numbers. It's about making informed decisions that can effectively support learning, help identify individual needs, and ultimately promote academic growth and success. When we grasp the meaning behind the scores, we can take meaningful steps to encourage progress and create a supportive educational environment.